Hi, welcome to another episode of Community Wellness. I'm a nurse at MGH. I work at 3 health centers. I work at Revere, Chelsea, and Charlestown, and I do emergency preparedness. But my past life has been working with community groups and working as a medical nurse and a visiting nurse. But for me, my love is community nursing and community education. And so this show for me is really special because I get to share pertinent information that's important for you, for communities and for individuals, for patients, for staff, for everybody. But also gives you the opportunity to think about other things you might want to be educated about. So always feel free to give us ideas. We're open for suggestions for topics. We've had many interesting topics. We've had the mayor of Revere on the Revere show. We've had Dr. Marie Pazinski talking about brain health. We've had Ming Sung talking about community health resources. And today we have a special program which is about tobacco and specifically e-cigarettes and hookah. There's been so much education about tobacco through the years, but I think it's really important to be able to discriminate and understand what are the basic facts of tobacco use, of e-cigarette use, and hookah use, because even as a nurse, I'm not aware of all the elements and all the cause and effects that these things have on our bodies, especially children who are using all of these products, as well as adults. So without further ado, welcome to our show. And today we have our special guest, Jonina Gorenstein, who is a specialist in tobacco, and she has been working at MGH Community Health Associates for about 2 years now. She has a past of incredible achievements. She's worked for the Department of Public Health. She is a lawyer. She's really smart. She really is interested in tobacco and its use. So welcome, Jonina, to our show.
Pat.
What made you go into this studying tobacco?
Well, that's an interesting question. I actually had experience in the Lawrence Community Health Center, and I love doing public health oriented things,
Right.
Helping community health in communities through community health centers. And this opportunity at MGH Community Health Associates came up to work in even a larger system, and I grabbed it. I didn't know much about tobacco, but I certainly jumped in and learned.
Oh, excellent. Wow. And what is your connection with Chelsea? I hear you have a connection with Chelsea.
I do have a connection. My dad grew up in Chelsea, my dad and his 2 brothers, and in fact, I just passed Arlington Street, which was one of the streets they lived on,
Wow.
in addition to Poplar Street and Bloomingdale Avenue. This is way back. My dad would have been 100 this year. And he also had a business on 2nd Street.
Wow.
So it's...
What kind of business?
My dad had a rag business, which was quite typical
That's
of
fascinating.
the time.
Yes.
And that's what supported our family.
Wow. That's great.
So,
So you're still in Chelsea.
I am still
Yay.
in Chelsea
And
proud
thank
to
you,
be
Dad.
so.
And thank you,
Yes.
Dad.
Yes, thank you, Dad.
So let's just get right into it because we don't have much time, and I do want to cover some of the topics because I'd
Sure.
love people to learn more, and I would like to learn more about tobacco and e-cigarettes. So what are e-cigarettes?
It's interesting. E-cigarettes are, the term itself is confusing. I don't know how many people, I think most people have heard about e-cigarettes, but what e-cigarettes really are, or they are what I would call a device that's electronic that creates a vapor.
Okay.
And everything that we may call an e-cigarette, and the terminology gets confusing, has a battery, a tank of liquid,
Yeah.
and the person uses whatever device there is to inhale a vapor.
Okay.
The battery heats the liquid, creates a vapor, and the person inhales. Let me show you an
Yes.
example.
Excellent.
Some examples, and maybe we can kind of make the distinction with all the terms that are flying around. Because if you talk to a young person about an e-cigarette, you may be thinking about 2 different things.
Okay.
So I just want to tell you that when you look at this photograph, the very top device is actually an electronic cigarette. It looks exactly like a real cigarette. And the first two items on this slide are what adults would call e-cigarettes and what kids would also call e-cigarettes. Again, you can't see it, but there's a tank of liquid and a battery inside, and you inhale on one end and you inhale a vapor. If you go further down, you'll see quite a few colorful devices. These are what kids are calling e-hookahs. They are, again, electronic vaporizing devices with a battery, with liquid, and kids, you can see that these are really marketed towards kids. They're colorful, they're kind of cool looking, and in fact, I will tell you that they are flavored. So you could have peach flavor, you could have Skittles flavor.
Yeah.
And you have to know, and then at the very bottom, before I go on and tell you what's actually in them,
Right.
You'll see something even more sophisticated at the very bottom. That's called a vaping pen. Again, it's an electronic vaporizing device, and it runs on the same idea, but in this case, people can really mix and match. They can actually decide what to put in the tank. Many of these other products are actually disposable.
Okay.
You use them only one time. So that's a basic. So
Yep.
if you ask a child whether they use an e-cigarette, they'll say, no, I don't use e-cigarettes.
Right.
When in fact, if you ask them, well, have you ever seen an e-hookah? They would say, sure.
Yeah.
But it's all the same.
Okay. Now, what's in them?
What's in them? Great question. What's in them is, first of all, nicotine, which is the same addictive chemical that's in cigarettes, the exact same thing. In addition, there's, in most of them, there's something called propylene glycol, glycerin, and then things particularly for kids that give them flavors, the blueberries, the gummy bears. That's what's in them. And just want to emphasize that these things are completely unregulated, that we don't know how much nicotine are in them. We don't know what else might be in it besides this propylene glycol and glycerin. So we don't know if they're safe.
Are they ADA approved?
No, there's nothing approved about them.
Okay, so that's
and
scary.
They're all a little different.
Okay.
And there are two kinds of issues when it comes to e-cigarettes. One is a lot of people wonder, can they be used to help people quit smoking?
Right.
And then the other thing is, well, are they really safe? And what about it? Is it okay for kids to be using them? I mean, if adults are using them for quitting smoking, is it okay for kids? And I would say that the issue for adults is that it's complicated. The issue for kids, should they be using it, is absolutely not. And I can talk about both of those sets of questions.
Please do.
For cessation,
which means stopping.
which means yes.
Yep.
Just to back up, I'll talk a little bit about tobacco.
Yes.
Even though far fewer of us are smoking cigarettes and using other forms of tobacco, smoking tobacco is still the #1 killer in communities across America.
Yep.
It kills more people than any other
And secondhand
disease.
smoke.
And secondhand smoke, yes. So it's more than 500,000 people die of tobacco-related diseases. So let's just put that on the
It's
table.
significant.
And it's still really important for people who are smoking to do their best to stop.
Absolutely.
It's the best thing they can do for their health.
And it's so for their health and the economic reality.
That's
They're
right.
so expensive.
They are so expensive.
And it's just,
Right.
Yes.
And you can really, if you begin to calculate how much money you spend on cigarettes,
It's a small fortune.
it's a small fortune.
Yep.
So I just wanted to put that on the table
Great,
about
thank you.
tobacco. So let's talk about, so of course we want to help people quit smoking. And the question is, can e-cigarettes do it for people?
Right.
And it's unclear. I have to tell you, it's unclear. There's nothing proven about it. And we have many other proven and effective methods. Let me just tell you a little bit about maybe the dangers
Sure.
There'll be a lot of research. I do want to back up and say there'll be a lot of research about e-cigarettes and whether or not they can be helpful. But here are some of the concerns, shall we say.
Yes.
And that is, if a person tries everything and then switches to e-cigarettes, it's not, the idea would be if that person was using regular cigarettes, switched to e-cigarettes, and then switched to nothing.
Right.
So the concern, however, is that people will switch to e-cigarettes and end up using both tobacco and e-cigarettes, and that they'll never really quit.
So it's really not a substitution. It doesn't seem to be.
No, or that they'll go to e-cigarettes and go back. And again, we don't know what's in them, and it could be harmful to adults as well, what's in them. So there are many proven ways of quitting cigarettes that we can talk about, some of the resources that people have, and they should really focus on those proven methods first and really make sure they're doing those methods properly.
Excellent. Now, when you talk about them, I also want to tell the audience that at the end there's going to be contact numbers for cessation, for stopping a cigarette, if you need coaching, if you need help to stop smoking. There's many, many resources, many programs. You could contact me, but we're going to also put up contact numbers for tobacco, for stopping tobacco, or information about anything that we talked about today. So don't worry when we reference that there are resources. At the end of the show, we'll put them up for you. So go ahead.
So basically, when we talk about cessation, I want to tell you what we know works.
Great.
What we know works is people double their chances of successfully quitting for good if they do both coaching and quit smoking medication. And by quit smoking medication, I mean things like nicotine lozenges, gum, there's even spray. And then there's other medication like Wellbutrin and Chantix is how people know that.
Okay.
So if you use one of those medications as directed by your doctor, you should get doctor guidance.
All of this should be doctor
All
guided.
of this should be.
Yes.
You know, the first thing you can do is make an appointment with your doctor. Say, doctor, I'm ready to talk about quitting, or at least I'm ready to talk to someone about the idea of quitting. You don't have to be ready to quit. You have to be ready to talk about it.
Right.
And then, well, what's coaching?
Right.
Coaching really means that, for instance, I manage a program called Living Tobacco Free, and we have coaches and who work directly one-on-one at all of our health centers in Everett, Revere, Chelsea, and Charlestown. And our coaches will sit with a person who's thinking about quitting and help them think about why they want to stop, find that motivation, help them find the motivation, and then make a plan with that person for what will work for that person. What is going to be the day-to-day strategy for avoiding triggers? You know, is it that cup of coffee? Well, maybe you'll change to a cup of tea, or maybe you'll have hot water, lemon juice, and honey.
Right.
What's going to help you avoid those triggers? How are you going to cope with your cravings? Maybe you're going to learn some relaxation techniques, or maybe you're just going to walk around the block 3 times.
Right. So everybody's different. There's an array of different techniques.
And that's why the coaching is very individualized.
Perfect. And your doctor can refer you to those coaches.
And at our health centers, this coaching is free.
Excellent.
And people should know that. And even if you are not an MGH patient, you can get an MGH number and make an appointment with our coach.
Oh, wow. That's
and the
wonderful.
numbers will be up, as you say, afterwards.
Perfect.
It's called Living Tobacco Free.
Perfect. Wow, what a great program.
Yes. And I want to mention another resource that's really great. Our coaching is in person, but the statewide, there is something called the Massachusetts Smokers Helpline. And people can, and that's telephone coaching, one-on-one.
Wow. So if you can't get to
a doctor,
perfect.
And what's really great actually about both services, our in-person coaching and our telephone coaching through the helpline, is that in our Living Tobacco Free, we offer coaching in Spanish.
Excellent.
Directly in Spanish, as does the Massachusetts Smokers Helpline. And in addition, both services can use what we call third-party translation. So if you are, if someone speaks Bosnian,
We can help
they can still take advantage of particularly the Massachusetts Smokers Helpline and have third-party translation come on the phone. And we can even do that in our one-on-one coaching at Living Tobacco Free.
So language should not be a barrier.
Language should not be a barrier.
Location should not be a barrier. So you can do telephone, you can do different languages.
That's right.
And you can do it from home, and you can do it through different techniques,
and
different resources.
I understand it. There'll be a short film after we're done talking at the end of the show about the Massachusetts Smokers Helpline, or they may be referring to it as the Massachusetts Quit Line.
Excellent.
But the difference is with the Quit Line, your doctor refers you, and with the helpline, you can call directly, and we'll have those numbers for you.
Great.
And there's just one last thing I want to say, and that is through the helpline, a person can get, once they engage in coaching, a person can get 4 weeks of free nicotine patches.
Oh, wow.
So that's very important
fabulous.
to people. Yes.
Because those are expensive.
Those are expensive, and sometimes they are covered by a person's insurance, particularly Medicaid covers all of the quit smoking medications. So let's just remember that.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So there's so many resources out there. Could you just talk a little bit about kids? And kids using tobacco products these days, and the use of cigarettes and the e-cigarettes and the hookah.
Yes. So what's really interesting is that, like adults, kids using cigarettes has decreased over the years. However, what we find happening with kids is that at the same time they are reducing their use of cigarettes, they are increasing their use of e-cigarettes, which has increased hugely, and they're also increasing their use of hookah.
Excellent. Could you talk a little, what is hookah?
Hookah, okay. Hookah, for people who don't know it, there'll be a slide up about it.
Yep.
And I'm going to just look at it here to refresh my memory. Hookah is tobacco in a water pipe that's heated. And there's water at the bottom of this pipe. You can see it. And the tobacco is put in there some way. And it's heated. And you inhale the smoke. Now, I have to talk about some myths, some false ideas about hookah.
Okay.
Kids often will tell you that, oh, it's okay, Mom and Dad. Hookah is fine. It's natural. The tobacco smoke is filtered through water. It's all taken care of. All the dangerous poisons and toxins are taken care of. Your kids mean well, but they're absolutely wrong. When you smoke hookah, you get the exact same poisons and toxins that are in regular cigarettes. Wow. You get the same addictive nicotine. And so when kids are using hookah or when they're using e-cigarettes with nicotine, they may be doing it maybe just on weekends, maybe they're doing it twice a week, but in fact, they could be going down the slippery slope
building up the habit
to addiction.
Yes.
And addiction to nicotine can creep up on a kid. And you don't want kids using e-cigarettes or hookahs because of the harm that nicotine does to adolescent brains in particular. It also does harms to babies as they're developing in their moms. And you don't want your child to develop an addiction to nicotine through e-cigarettes because we are concerned that could lead to real smoking of cigarettes, in addition to affecting their brain. And you certainly don't want your child smoking tobacco and getting to cigarettes that way. So hookah, and the other thing that's really terrible to think about is that it's a very social thing, and
Right.
and it's a very social thing, particularly in Middle Eastern cultures, and it's unfortunate that it is so bad for one's health.
Right.
But when you smoke hookah, an hour of social smoking they've discovered, can really equal almost anywhere from 40 to more than 100 cigarettes that you're smoking, because you are inhaling so much more smoke, because its bitterness, its ickiness is mitigated, is taken away by the water. And you sit there and you smoke socially. You can see on that slide that we showed you the number of extensions, so 4 people can be smoking at once.
So it becomes a real, and then they target with all these flavorings,
That's right.
and with all these other things,
That's
bright
right.
colors, and they make
That's
it so
right.
appealing to younger people.
That's right. That's right. So it's really tough. Young people are still targeted by the tobacco industry. They're targeted by those colorful hookah sticks that we saw, which are the electronic vaping devices or vaporizing devices. They're targeted by flavors in the tobacco that is sold for hookah. They're targeted all the time by tobacco companies, because unfortunately tobacco companies want to turn them into the next generation of their product users, but we, all of us, the whole community, wants to keep kids away from nicotine products, keep kids away from cigarettes, because we want them to just have the best health they can for their entire life.
Excellent. Wow, very good.
Yes.
Excellent, very good winding that up. We only have a couple more minutes. What did I want to ask you about? For children, so when adolescents and children go to their physicians, they should be, adolescents should mention if they're using e-cigarettes, if they can, please, so that they can, so the doctor would be aware that the nicotine could be one of the factors of affecting, because so many people have asthma and other conditions that this is not good for. So to have people inform their physicians of any of their tobacco use, no matter what form it is, so that they're aware of so they can incorporate that into their treatment.
And we hope parents will talk to their kids about tobacco use and make it clear, set a standard that there should be no nicotine use, no other tobacco product use. Explain to them that e-cigarettes do contain addictive nicotine. We don't know how it's going to affect that deep lung tissue. That cigarette smoking is the worst thing they can do for their health. Explain all the potential harms, and let a kid know that even doing it a few times is not good, because that nicotine addiction can creep up on them. And they want their brain to develop as it should, and their bodies and their lungs to develop as it should.
As healthy as possible.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much. This was so informative. I've learned a lot, and basically, I always kind of thought that e-cigarettes were less, that they weren't as bad, and now I know they are. And
that's right.
It's really important information for people to know, because it can be very, very bad for your health, for children's health, and bad for everybody. It's not a good thing.
And there's too many unknowns. There's just way
there's not
too
enough
many,
studies that have
not enough studies. So stick to what's proven for tobacco cessation, and keep kids completely away from it.
Great. Well, thank you, Donina.
You're quite welcome,
for
Pat.
coming today, and we learned a lot.
Thanks
again for tuning in for another episode of Community Wellness. At the end, we're going to show a short video, and then at the end of the show, we are going to have all the resource phone numbers and contacts, so please utilize those. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, or contact me, pbsimpson@partners.org, or you can get my information and Jonina's information through the cable TV show here, through the cable television show. Please be safe, and please educate each other, take care of each other, and be kind to each other. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.
People often call the Smokers Helpline just looking for information on how to quit or where to even begin.
Some people are thinking about quitting themselves. Sometimes a doctor might call in to get more information to help their patient. Sometimes a mother or a spouse might call in because they want to help their loved one to quit smoking.
Sometimes they're overwhelmed. Sometimes they're just looking for a starting point.
We'll offer you services to help you quit smoking. And these services will include mailing out information on quit smoking medications, setting you up with a coaching call, and giving you information about the free website and the free Quit Tips line.
One thing that's really important to understand about quitting smoking is that it's not usually a one-time effort. It would be really nice if it were, but nicotine and tobacco is a really powerful addiction, and there's help for it, and the more support you get, the easier it is every time that you try to reach that goal.
All our services are free and confidential, and we're here to help you and support you and lead you through the steps that you need to take to lead a smoke-free life.
We would encourage people to use a combination of a quit smoking medication like the patch, along with our telephone coaching program. We have found that when people use quit smoking medication along with some kind of behavioral support, they quit 3 times more often than people who don't use either of those things.
We will talk about the triggers, talk about the times when you're driving and you have a strong craving, talk about the times after a meal, talk about when you're with other smokers and that can be really hard to choose not to smoke. There are ways to learn how to deal with each of those situations and still stay quit.
You can set your own pace to quit smoking. Whatever works for you, we will be here to support you.
I'd really encourage you to give it a try. We'll listen to where you're coming from and meet you where you're at. It's not everyone is the same and we have the same approach.
I like to remind people when they're quitting is just to really keep yourself open to every possibility, everything new, to help you get to where you want to be.
We're all here to walk you through the process.
Call the Massachusetts Smokers Helpline.
1-800-QUIT-NOW.
You can quit smoking.
You can do it.